March 1946. The Baltic wind cuts across the ruins of dusk like a blade. I stand in a cordon square near the old prison wall. My hands numb, my coat thin, my breath white in the air. Around me are other German women, former auxiliaries, clerks, radio operators, now prisoners of war. We are told to stand straight, to watch. This is justice, the Polish guard says. His rifle rests easy in his arms, but his eyes never leave us. My name is Elise Krugmer, 23. I was a communications clerk at Stutthof. One typed orders. I logged transports. I never carried a whip. I tell myself this as the crowd gathers. Polish civilians, survivors, soldiers, faces hollowed by years of hunger. Some wear striped camp jackets beneath civilian coats. Others clutch photographs, names written on scraps of paper. They do not look at us. They look past us, toward the gallows rising in the square. The wooden frames stand stark against the gray sky, 5 of them, freshly built. Ropes hang motionless. No platform, no hood. This is not hidden. This is meant to be seen. A Polish officer reads names aloud in a flat voice. Former guards, kapos, men and women who wore the black SS runes. I recognize some names. One woman's shoulders stiffen to rows ahead of me. Another begins to shake. A survivor near the front mutters a prayer in Polish. Someone else spits on the ground. The sound lands like a slap. I feel my stomach tighten. At Stutthof, we learn it to keep our faces blank. Here, the guards demand the same. Eyes forward, one barks. I obey. The condemned are marched in. Their uniforms are gone, no black coats, no insignia, just plain prison clothes. One man limps. Another keeps his chin high, jaw clenched, as if posture could still protect him. A woman older than me meets the crowd's stare and then looks away. For a moment, her eyes flick to us. I look down. A Polish prosecutor speaks of crimes, starvation, beatings, selections, transports to the gas chamber. The words echo off stone. I hear dates, numbers. I think of my typewriter, the ribbon smudged with ink, the way I learned not to ask what special handling meant. A voice inside me whispers that silence is its own weapon. I push it away. The nooses are adjusted. A soldier tests the knots. The crowd surges closer. Someone cries out a name, then another. The guards tense, fingers on triggers. The wind lifts dust and ash from the ground. I taste it on my tongue. The officer raises his hand. The square falls into a terrible quiet. I realize my heart is pounding so loudly I am sure others can hear it. Justice, they said. I wonder who it is meant for. The hand begins to fall. The sound is not loud, but it is final. Wood against iron. Ropes snap tight. Bodies drop and jerk. Boots scraping once, twice, then hanging still. A woman in the crowd screams. Another voice shouts something I don't understand, raw and broken. The wind carries it across the square like a curse. I force myself to keep my eyes forward. That is the order. That is survival. My throat closes anyway. I feel it in my chest, a pressure that won't release. One of the condemned kicks for a long second before going limp. Another dies almost at once. The older woman struggles, hands clawing at the rope, face darkening. Time stretches. No one looks away. A Polish doctor steps forward with a watch in his hand. This is measured, deliberate, justice with a stopwatch. When he nods, the bodies are cut down. They fall hard onto the frozen ground. The sound makes several of us flinch. A guard glances back at our line, eyes sharp, daring us to react again. The crowd does not disperse. They press closer. Some shout. Some are silent, tears cutting clean lines through soot-stained faces. I notice a man in a striped jacket gripping the arm of a young girl. She cannot be more than 10. Her eyes are wide, unblinking. I wonder what memory she will carry from today. The officer reads the next names. My pulse spikes. For a split second, I think I hear my own. I do not yet. Relief is immediate and shameful. It settles heavy in my gut. At Stutthof, relief always belonged to someone else's suffering. The lesson did not leave me with the uniform. Another group is marched in. These ones look worse, bruised and shaven. One man's lip is split, dried blood dark against his chin. When he sees the gallows, he stops walking. A Polish guard shoves him forward with the butt of a rifle. The crowd roars approval. I feel the sound hit me like a wave. Behind me, a German woman whispers, "This is wrong." Her voice trembles. I don't turn. I don't answer. Wrong how? Wrong that they die. Or wrong that we are forced to watch and wonder who is next. The question coils in my mind, dangerous and unanswered. The charges are read again. Witnesses are named. I recognize some surnames from transport lists. I typed in 1944. My fingers curl inside my gloves. I remember the rhythm of the keys, the way the paper slid free when the carriage returned. The ease of it, the safety of it, a job done cleanly, far from the wire. The condemned are positioned beneath the ropes. One man begins to pray in German. A survivor yells for him to be silent. A polished soldier hesitates, then tightens the noose anyway, his jaw set, eyes glassy. Snow begins to fall light, almost gentle. It settles on shoulders, on caps, on the gallows beam. White against dark wood. The officer raises his hand again. This time, I realize something else with sudden clarity. This square is not only a place of punishment, it is a warning. And we standing in this line, watched and waiting our part of the message. The hand pauses in the air. The trapdoors fall and the bodies vanish beneath the beams. The crowd erupts again, some cheering, some sobbing, some shouting names into the air, as if the dead might still answer. I feel the vibration of it through the soles of my boots. A guard shifts his stance beside us, rifle angled just enough to remind us where we stand in this equation. One of the condemned does not die quickly. His legs jerk, heels drumming the air. The rope twists, creaking. A survivor in the front row turns away at last, pressing his face into his hands. Another steps closer, eyes burning, as if he wants to memorize every second. I cannot tell which reaction frightens me more. Behind the gallows, a table has been set up. Papers, stamps, a clerk polish. Young writes steadily, recording times, names, confirmations. I watch his pen move and feel a sharp, unwelcome recognition. The war is over, but the machinery remains. Different hands, different victims, the same precision. A woman near me sways. She is about my age, her hair pulled back too tightly. She whispers, "I was a cook." Her lips barely move. I fed them. I don't know who them is meant to convince. The guard hears her anyway. He snaps, silence. She bites down hard, blood blooming at the corner of her mouth. As the bodies are lowered, a group of survivors is allowed forward. They form a line, faces set, eyes fixed on the dead. One man steps out, points with a trembling finger, and says a single word. Her. A murmur ripples through the crowd. The Polish officer notes it, expression unreadable. I realize then that this is not finished, not with these executions, not with us. A truck idles at the edge of the square, engine coughing, more condemned wait inside. Guarded, I glimpse a familiar profile. Through the slats. Irma. She worked in records with me. She borrowed my pencil once and never returned it. We shared bread on night shift. She never raised her voice. She is staring straight ahead, lips moving without sound. My chest tightens. I try to tell myself that knowing someone changes nothing. The charges are read for the next group, specific, detailed. Testimony from Stutthof survivors. Dates aligned with entries I typed. My name is not spoken, but my work is there, woven through the evidence like a thread. A Polish officer walks our line slowly, boots crunching on gravel. He stops in front of me, studies my face. Clerk, he asks in accented German. I hesitate. Lying feels useless. Yes, I say. He nods once, as if confirming a detail already known. He moves on. The space he leaves behind feels colder than the wind. The officer at the gallows raises his hand again. The crowd quiets, anticipation heavy as smoke. I can see Irma now, being marched forward, her shoulders squared, eyes fixed on the beam above. For the first time since the war ended, I am certain of one thing. Surviving the camps does not mean surviving what comes after. The hand drops. Irma walks without stumbling. That detail stays with me. Her boots crunch evenly on the gravel as the guards guide her beneath the beam. She keeps her hands still, fingers curled inward, as if holding something fragile. When the rope is lifted, she flinches just once, then steadies herself. The crowd watches, breath held. Somewhere, a camera clicks. I don't turn to see who holds it. The prosecutor reads her charges. Administrative complicity, knowledge of transports, facilitation. The words sound clinical, stripped of heat, but the crowd reacts to each one. Shouts break the silence. A survivor steps forward and speaks her name. Irma closes her eyes. I remember her laugh, quiet and sudden. When the power failed one night and we finished reports by candlelight. I remember how she said, "It can't last forever." I wonder now what she meant. The noose slides over her head. A Polish guard adjusts it carefully, avoiding her eyes. His jaw tightens. For a moment, I think he might stop. He doesn't. The officer raises his hand. Time slows again, thick and unbearable. The drop comes. Irma's body falls hard. The rope snaps taut. Her legs kick once, twice, then hang still. A sound escapes my throat before I can stop it, a short breath, almost a sob. The guard beside us snaps his head around. His glare pins me in place. I force my face back into stillness, nails biting into my palms. The doctor checks his watch. Nods. They cut her down. Something inside me breaks, not loudly, not all at once. It splinters, quietly, like ice under pressure. I feel a heat behind my eyes, but no tears fall. I don't deserve them, a voice says. I don't know whose. As the body is dragged aside, the crowd surges forward again. A woman throws a handful of dirt. It hits Irma's coat and scatters across the ground. Others follow stones, snow, curses. The guards push them back, rifles up. For a moment, it looks like the square might erupt into violence. Then the officer shouts an order, sharp and final. We are marched back a few steps, away from the gallows. I stumble, regain my balance. The line tightens. A Polish officer reads from a list again. This time, he reads categories. Former guards. Administrative staff, auxiliaries. Administrative staff. My heart lurches. Names follow. Not mine. Not yet. Each one lands like a blow anyway. I realize the executions are not the end of judgment, they are the opening act. Trials continue. Witnesses speak. Files are thick. And we are still here, still counted. A survivor steps toward us, breaking through the cordon before guards can stop him. He points at our line, his hand shaking with fury. They knew, he shouts in German. They all knew. The guards drag him back, but the words linger, hanging heavier than the ropes. Snow falls harder now, blurring the edges of the square. The gallows loom through it, dark and patient. The officer looks toward the truck again. More prisoners wait, more names, more watching. By afternoon, the square smells of wet rope and cold earth. The executions continue with grim rhythm. Names are called, bodies fall. The crowd's fury ebbs and surges like a tide, sometimes breaking into shouts, sometimes collapsing into a stunned, exhausted silence. Snow clings to boots and hems, turning gray underfoot. The gallows stand dark against the white, indifferent to how many pass beneath them. We are marched to the side of the square, closer now. Too close. I can see the grain of the wood, the frayed fibers of rope where hands have gripped and struggled. A Polish sergeant paces in front of us, eyes sharp, face drawn. He looks no older than I am. When he stops, it is directly in front of me. Name, he says. Elise Krigmer. Position, communications clerk, I answer. My voice sounds steady. I barely recognize it as my own. He studies me for a long moment, then makes a mark on his paper. I don't know what it means. I don't ask. Questions are dangerous things here. Behind me, someone begins to cry soft at first, then harder, the sound tearing loose from a chest that can't hold it anymore. A guard snaps at her to stop. She doesn't. He raises his hand. The sergeant shakes his head once. The guard lowers it, jaw clenched. Mercy, it seems, is rationed carefully. Another condemned man is led forward. He stares straight at us as the rope is placed around his neck. You watched, he says in German, voice hoarse. All of you watched. His eyes lock on mine. I want to look away. I don't. The trapdoor drops. The crowd roars approval this time, louder than before. I flinch as if struck. The sound is not joy exactly, it is release. Years of fear and helplessness pouring out in one violent breath. I understand it. That understanding frightens me. As the body is lowered, a Polish officer announces that witnesses will be called next. Survivors who worked near administration. Those who saw clerks, typists, record keepers. My pulse spikes again. I feel the edges of the world narrow. The square shrinking until there is only the gallows and our line beneath it. A woman survivor steps forward. Thin, wrapped in a coat too large for her. She scans our faces slowly, deliberately. Her eyes stop on the cook. Then they move on. They stop on me. My breath catches. For a second, the noise fades, the crowd, the wind, the orders. There is only her gaze, sharp and steady. She takes a step closer, then another. A guard moves to block her. She lifts a hand. I know her, she says in German, clear and calm. The sergeant turns. From where? From the office, she answers. She typed the lists. The words hit like a physical blow. I feel heat rush to my face, my legs weakening. The sergeant looks at me again, differently now. Not with curiosity, with decision. Remove her from the line, he orders. Hands grip my arms. The world tilts as I'm pulled forward, away from the others, toward the gallows that have not finished speaking today. Behind me, the officer raises his hand. They stop me short of the gallows, not beneath the rope, not yet. I am held at the edge of the square, hands still on my arms, the wood looming just beyond reach. I can see the knots clearly now, darkened by use, fibers stiff with frost. My breath comes fast. I force it down. Panic will not save me. Nothing will. The survivor steps closer. Her face is lined, eyes bright with something sharper than anger, memory. She worked nights, she says. She typed transports after curfew. We heard the keys through the wall. Her voice does not rise. It doesn't need to. The square listens. The sergeant asks me if it's true. Yes, I say. The word feels heavy, honest in a way I avoided for years. I typed, "Did you know where they went?" he asks. I think of the euphemisms, of the columns and stamps, of the day a transport returned empty and no explanation was required. I nod. Once, the crowd murmurs. A guard tightens his grip. The sergeant looks toward the gallows, then back to me. "This is an execution," he says, almost to himself. "Not a trial." He gestures toward the survivor. "She will testify. You will be tried." A wave of sound crashes over the square, shouts of approval, of protest, of hunger for more. Someone yells that it isn't enough. Someone else yells that it is the law. The guards push the crowd back as tempers flare. For a moment, it feels like the line between justice and vengeance might tear open completely. I am pulled away, toward a truck this time. The engine rattles. The door slams behind me. Inside, it is dark and smells of oil and damp wool. Other women sit along the benches, faces pale, eyes fixed on nothing. The cook is there. She reaches for my hand. I let her. Through the slats, I hear the final names read. The final drop. The sound carries even through metal and distance. It settles into my bones. The truck lurches forward. As we move away, the square recedes. But the image does not. The gallows remain in my mind, public, deliberate, unforgettable. A warning, yes, but also a question that will not let me go. That night, in a holding cell, I lie awake listening to the wind scrape along stone. I think of Irma, of the survivor's eyes, of the clerk with the pen, writing it all down. I understand now that survival is not absolution. Silence is not innocence. And punishment, when it comes, wears many faces. Outside, somewhere beyond the walls, people sleep easier knowing justice was done. Or revenge. Or both. I stare into the dark, waiting for my name to be called again, this time not by a crowd, but by history.